welcome back to my channel. Um, I'm just trying to play catch up with my videos, so yeah. But you're gonna come sit with me today. We're continuing with this summer series, and today's conversation is one I wish people talked about more because we hear so much about like breakups. We're told how to recognize red flags in dating, but no one really teaches us what happens when we start outgrowing people that you've loved for so long, years, weeks, months at that. so today we're gonna have some more girl chat and we're gonna talk about boundaries, friendships, um, why letting go doesn't automatically make someone the villain, and sometimes it simply means you've both outgrown each other and you're going in different directions. So I want you to stay tuned, and I would love for you to grab some tea, coffee, whatever. Be sure you subscribe, like, share, so you don't miss out on anything. Share your thoughts on what I say in the comments because I'm not always right. So let me know what you think in the comments and stay tuned. Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome to Joy Serendipity. If you're new here, definitely subscribe. You won't regret it. Welcome back. So, we're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to give you some signs that you're outgrowing a friendship. I've done this on my other platforms, but why not do it here? I think one of the hardest things about outgrowing a friendship is that it usually doesn't happen overnight, despite what others say. Most friendships don't end because of one dramatic fight. Sometimes they fade so slowly that you don't even notice it's happening until one day you leave a conversation feeling different. Like, I feel like it's always the straw that broke the camel's back, if that's how you say that saying. But before I say anything else, I want to make something clear. Outgrowing someone doesn't mean you're better than them, okay? It doesn't mean they're toxic. It doesn't mean the friendship was fake or anything. Sometimes people are exactly who you needed in one season in your life, but they aren't who you need in the next one. So, how do you know you're outgrowing a friendship? Cool. Sign number one. Write this down. You don't feel like yourself anymore. Have you ever left a lunch, brunch, or like you guys went out for drinks? Like you went out with someone and realized you spent the whole time filtering yourself? Like maybe you held back some excitement because they always dismiss your dreams, or maybe you avoided sharing some good news because it somehow always turns into a competition with them. Maybe you left feeling smaller than you arrived. Healthy friendships should not feel like you're like it should feel like you're safe to fully be yourself. Like obviously not perfect and not always happy. So just like yourself. So that's a sign that if you're not able to be yourself, maybe you're outgrowing that friendship. I hate to say it. Okay. Number two, the effort only flows one way. This is why a lot of my friendships ended, because I felt like I was giving, and getting nothing in return, or getting like breadcrumbs from a friendship. So, if you're always the one checking in, always planning, always remembering birthdays, always doing something for birthdays, or if you're always asking how they're doing, but when you stop reaching out, silence. Yeah, that silence is a key thing to let you know maybe I'm outgrowing this friendship. Friendship requires effort from both people. Like I'm not saying there's scorekeeping and receipt. I'm saying that there's like mutual care from both ends equally. If you are constantly pouring into someone while they're only receiving, eventually you're going to run empty. And that's going to turn into resentment. And that's how friendships end in a nasty way. So if you notice that you're start giving and giving instead of letting that resentment build, I would suggest maybe either taking a step back from the friendship or ending it right then and there. So sign number three that you're outgrowing a friendship. And this one is the hardest because nobody did anything wrong. Maybe your priorities changed. Yeah, I hate to say it. Like you have different priority. Like for instance, this is an easy one. What if someone had kids and then the other friend doesn't have kids? Your priorities are automatically going to change when you have kids. Do I think that you should realize that you're being a terrible friend and just respectfully end it? Yes, but that isn't always the case. So there are times where someone's focusing on their healing or building a business, or your faith deepened, so you kind of need to step back from that friendship to decide if it should continue. Or maybe you're becoming more intentional about who and what you give your energy to. This is a reminder that growth is going to change conversations and values, and sometimes how you spend your weekend, especially with the faith component that I said. So sometimes those differences create distance, not because everyone is a bad person, but because you're no longer, you know, walking the same road. Sorry, I'm like looking at someone on the roof, whatever. So, sign number 4 that you've outgrown a friendship. You feel emotionally exhausted instead of emotionally supportive. If it's becoming to the point where conversations are feeling heavy and every interaction leaves you drained, you find yourself needing. A lot of the times, I know I had one friendship that was like this. Like, after we hung out, I was like, oh, that was a lot. Time for me to go take a little talk to my therapist. That's how I felt. So, yeah, friendships aren't supposed to be perfect, and we all go through rough seasons, but if someone is constantly leaving you feeling guilty or anxious or emotionally depleted, it's okay to ask why and ask yourself, am I okay with that? And here's something I had to learn the hard way. Love isn't measured by how much you're willing to tolerate, and that's in all aspects of like relationships, like romantically, friendships, jobs, family. Healthy love, whether romantic or platonic, includes respect. That is a top pillar that should be required for all friendships for everyone. So, when it comes to my experience, I guess I'll share something personal. Not to make anyone look bad and not to expose anyone. Just because I think someone watching this needs to hear this to know that they're not alone. There have been friendships in my life where I genuinely thought they would last forever. Like, especially stuff I dealt with in my life, I like to hold on to relationships even though sometimes I know they're hurting me. I thought those friendships would last forever, and I thought they would be in my wedding. I thought they would be there for me, celebrating birthdays and us growing old together. Like, I literally saw us as golden girls, literally, like, since childhood. And for a season, those friendships were beautiful, and like we had great laughter, we have great stories, and like we supported each other and made memories that I'll always cherish. But over time, things started changing, and it wasn't like very dramatically, it was like more as quietly, to where I like started having some talks with myself, like, do I need this friendship anymore? Am I feeling like I'm getting as much as I'm putting out? Because when I tell you I go 100% in for those friendships, I do, but it wasn't being reciprocated. And I was grieving a friendship that technically didn't end. And I want to know if you guys like have experienced that, where the relationship still exists, but it didn't feel the same anymore. Like, it was very confusing when it came to the grief, because nobody teaches us how to mourn someone who's still alive. Trust me, I know how to mourn people who aren't here anymore. Been through it a lot. But people who are still here, it was hard for me. And for the longest time, I would like blame myself, and I wondered if I wasn't trying hard enough, which is crazy because I was trying very hard. And I always questioned if like I was the problem. But like after like a lot of prayer and reflection and some honest conversations with myself, because I told you guys I was like chatting with myself to like decide what I was gonna do about it. Like, yeah, I realized something. Sometimes we're trying to save relationships that both people quietly outgrew, and no one would take the courage to take the step to end it. And the realization didn't make me angry. Like, it made me grateful for what we shared and what the friendship taught me, what I'm willing to tolerate, what I expect in a friendship. And I had no type of resentment. I was grateful enough to release any that I may have had. And that doesn't mean that the ending of the friendship didn't hurt. It, like, 100% did. But not every ending needs an enemy. I don't know why everyone feels it has to end drastically. Sometimes 2 chapters close and come to a close, and who knows, maybe they'll be in another chapter in the future pages of your book. But sometimes you gotta end things, and it doesn't always have to be bad. So I know you're waiting for me to get to the point of how to set boundaries. Hold on, let me check my message. Okay. So let's talk about how to set those boundaries. And let's talk about the part that makes things uncomfortable when it comes to setting boundaries. I used to think boundaries meant confrontation or cutting people off, which I have become good at. I thought it meant cutting people off or making dramatic social media posts. I didn't do that, but I've had that done for me because I don't like taking my business to social media. I digress. A boundary is for you. I want to remind you guys, a boundary is for you. A lot of people think setting boundaries means you're setting it for the other person as some sort of punishment or that. No, a boundary is for you. A boundary isn't saying you're a terrible person. It's saying this is what I need in order for my peace to be protected, in order for me to sustain whatever we got going on. Sometimes the healthiest boundary is simply creating more space. And you don't have to answer every text immediately. There's more to go into that, but we'll talk about it another day. And you don't have to say yes to every invitation. But especially when it comes to making decisions, you do not need to explain your decision, every decision you make. But use that with a grain of salt, because people take that and they just suck with communication. So, whatever. But here are a few phrases I've learned that are honest and respectful, because you still want to have that respectful, honest, relationship with someone. Thank you for inviting me, but I'm going to sit this one out this time. That is so simple to say. You're communicating so that person is not questioning whatever it is you got going on. You're not ghosting them, but you don't have to explain yourself. You get what I'm saying? So that's a boundary that you set for yourself, but you're still giving the respect to that person that you're claiming to care about, right? Here's another one. I really value our friendship, but I need to be honest about something that's been on my heart. You could do that over coffee. When it comes to conversations like this, I don't recommend doing it through text, because you can't really read someone's tone in text, and tone really affects how someone takes what you're saying. But if you have to do it through text, you may have to add like disclaimers or something like that. Another way to set a boundary, I would say, is I don't have the emotional capacity for this conversation today, but I'd love to check in another time. Don't say it sarcastically. That kind of sounded sarcastic in my tone. But I'd love to check in another time. That's how you say it. And you notice something. None of these responses are rude. They're not rude. They're very clear. They're very intentional. You still care about the other person's feelings. Kindness and boundaries can exist in the same sentence. And here's another thing. You don't need everyone to understand your boundary to be valid. Okay? Some people would celebrate your growth. Others may feel uncomfortable because your new boundaries aren't benefiting them anymore. I've had that happen with a lot of, like, a family. They couldn't respect my boundaries. Well, so both reactions tell you something. Your responsibility isn't managing everyone else's feelings. We are all in charge of our feelings and how we manage them and how we deal with them. Your responsibility is being respectful enough while staying true to yourself. Being respectful enough to communicate what it is you're going through, but you don't have to like deplete yourself in explaining what it is you're going through. You get what I'm saying? Boundaries are so easy. I feel like people make them more difficult than they need to be. But here, moving on, it's okay to grieve. And I want to remind you of that because not everyone's going to accept your boundaries. I think this is the part that we skip over too quickly, and that's the grief part, because friendship breakups don't usually come with sympathy cards. People don't check on you the way they do after a romantic breakup. Okay, there have been friendships that I was grieving, and the other friends, mutual friends, just went about their days. It was rough, but yeah. Losing a friend can hurt just as deeply, sometimes even worse than a romantic breakup. I know I cherish friendships. I wouldn't say more than romantic, but I truly cherish friendships. Friends witness versions of you that no one else gets to see, and I feel like that's why it hurts so deep. They know your inside jokes. They know your deepest dreams that you don't even express to anyone else. They know your weaknesses and the struggles that you deal with. And your memories don't disappear with those friendships or because the relationship has changed. So if you are grieving, you don't have to rush yourself. You can miss that friendship, you can miss that person, and still know the relationship isn't healthy for where you're going right now at this time in your life. Those two things can exist together. But healing and pretending that you didn't care is not healthy at all. You can heal and care without clinging. It's thanking, I'm like looking at this person. It's thanking the friendship for what it gave you while accepting that not every person is meant to walk with you for the rest of your life. And I want you to hear this. Releasing someone doesn't erase the love that you have for them. It just is making room for relationships that align with who you're becoming today. Because I do want to remind you, if you aren't changing, it's a little suspicious if you aren't changing at all in your life, or evolving. I would say evolving. So if you're going through this right now, I just want to remind you of something. You're not difficult because you have boundaries. You actually need to have them. You're not selfish for protecting your peace if you're doing it in a respectful way. I did want to add that. You're not a bad friend if you've outgrown that friend. Sometimes loving people also means accepting that you've reached the end of the chapter together, and that is okay. I hope this conversation makes you feel a little less alone. I'm hoping so. If you're comfortable, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments. Share if you had it in a friendship or temporarily put it on pause. I want to know, have you ever outgrown a friendship?